Pearl Sydenstricker Buck was an American writer and novelist. She had a Chinese name, Tsai Zhenshu, as she spent her childhood in China being the daughter of missionaries. She was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in 1932 and Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1938. The story highlights how a Japanese doctor saves the life of an American prisoner of war and rises above narrow national prejudices. He risks his honor, career, position, and life by sheltering a war prisoner of the enemy camp and saving his life. The author has beautifully portrayed the conflict in the doctor's mind as a private individual and as a citizen with a sense of national loyalty. The story has overall 9 characters, out of which 1 is American and rest of the 8 are Japanese. First major character, Dr. Sadao Hoki, is the story's main protagonist, a deeply nationalistic Japanese man with an intense prejudicial hatred for white people. Racist to the core and instilled by his father to believe in the manifest destiny of Japan to take over the world, his first instinct upon coming across an injured American soldier is to hand him over to authorities. But Hoki's equally deep-seated compassion as a physician dedicated to heal brings him into the conflict. Hana, the doctor's wife, equally racist, she was only able to marry Sadao because she was a pure-blooded Japanese woman. She is repulsed by the American but agrees to help her husband with the white man's recovery from the injuries he suffered. Next character is Tom, the American soldier. Tom first appears as a nebulous dark shape in water that turns out to be badly injured American fighting the Japanese during World War II. He tries to connect with the doctor who saved his life, but succeeds only in being human enough for the doctor to come up with a plan for his escape aboard a Korean fishing boat. Next is the general, who is an old wife-beating war hero who is depending upon the doctor to save his life. When Sadao confesses to what he has done with the American, the general agrees to keep his secret because exposing Sadao would result in the only physician he trusts to keep him alive also going to jail. Servants of the doctor and his wife grudgingly accept the fact that their employers are giving aid and comfort to the enemy for a while anyway. Just as racist toward whites as the Hokis, they eventually choose nationalistic pride over human compassion and quit. Next character is the officer, who is one of the minor characters and acts as the messenger of the general. The next character is a gardener, who is an old person working in the house of Dr. Sadao. He was appointed by Sadao's father. The next character is Yumi, who works as a maidservant in the house of the Hokis. Hokis also have a house cook who is responsible for cooking meals for the family. The story takes place on a coastal town of Japan in the year 1941 when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. A war going on between America and Japan. Japanese were hostile to the Americans and ready to kill any American found on their soil. Sadao Hoki, a famous Japanese surgeon and an accomplished scientist, lived in a house on the Japanese coast. The house was set upon rocks above a narrow beach surrounded by pine trees. As a child, Sadao used to climb these trees. He often visited the South Sea Islands with his father. His father believed that the islands were stepping stones to Japan's future to gain perfection. Sadao's father was very serious and traditional man. He never joked or played with him, but took infinite pains for his son. Sadao's education was a chief concern. He even sent Sadao to America to complete his studies. Sadao's father inculcated in him values of patriotism and national loyalty when the latter was quite young, and Sadao had always cherished these great virtues. The Second World War started, but Sadao was not sent with the troops because he was about to make a discovery which would render wounds entirely clean. Also, the general, who was old, was being treated by Sadao, and he might require an operation anytime. Sadao had taken his professional education in America, where he had a chance meeting with Hana, who was to become his wife. He had lived in Professor Harley's house, where he had nearly decided not to go because of bad food, dirty lodgings, and an extremely talkative wife of the professor. Sadao had made sure that Hana was a Japanese, and then they had waited to return to Japan and get married according to the rights of their land. Happily married, they have 2 children and a successful career. One night, Sadao and Hana were enjoying the view of the sea from their veranda when they saw something black coming out of the mist. It was a man. He staggered a few steps and then the mist hit him again. When they saw him again, he was crawling. Sadao thought he was a fisherman washed ashore from his boat. The surf beyond the beach was spiked with rocks. The man might be badly hurt. They found the man wounded. Hana realized that it was a white man. The fellow was young and unconscious. The man was bleeding profusely. Sadao saw that a bullet wound had reopened. Sadao packed the wound with sea moss. The man moaned with pain, but he did not awaken. Sadao wanted to throw the man back into the sea, as he had now realized that he was an American prisoner of war. Hana also agreed. Sadao knew that giving shelter to the enemy would get them into trouble. He was torn between his moral duty as a doctor, which urged him to save the dying man, and his national duty, which required handing him over to the army as a patriot. Both Hana and Sadao finally decided to take the man home as he was in need of urgent medical attention. Both Sadao and Hana decided that they should tell the servants about this. They would tell them that they intended to hand him over to the police. The man had been starved for a long time and he was light as a fowl. They carried him to Sadao's father's bedroom as his father was no longer alive. The old man had never allowed a foreign object in his room. The American was very dirty and needed to be washed. Hana asked Yumi the governess might wash her. She went to fetch her. When she returned to the kitchen, she found the other 2 servants frightened at what Sadao had told them. The servants tried to convince Sadao that he must hand over the enemy to the police. Yumi refused to wash the American and Hana had to wash him herself. Sadao was ready to operate. He was completely absorbed in his work. He told Hana that she would need to give anesthetic to the man. Hana probably had never seen an operation and started vomiting. Sadao was irritable and impatient with his enemy as he was not able to help Hana in her distress. The man groaned with pain. Interestingly enough, Hana was able to assist her husband in the operation. Hana noticed deep red scars on the neck of their enemy. She wondered if the war torture stories she had heard were eventually true. She recalled that General was a ruthless man who didn't even spare his wife. Sadao murmured while operating, as was his habit. He called his enemy his friend. Sadao finally succeeded to save his life in spite of all the sufferings. Hana took good care of the man. She served him as the servants refused to enter the room. The man was surprised to see Hana talk in English. Hana told him that she had lived in America for a long time. He envy reveals his name to Hana. His name was Tom. Sadao was still confused about handing him over to the police. The servants resented their decision to help the American soldier. Hana told Sadao that the servants would not live in the house if the enemy was still present. The servants thought that the couple liked Americans. Sadao tried to clarify that all Americans were his enemies. They talked about the consequences of harboring an enemy. Hana could hear what they were talking about. On the seventh day, the servants leave the job. On the same day, an official in uniform came to Sadao's house. Hana was so scared that she was unable to speak. She thought that he was there to arrest Sadao. In fact, the messenger had come to inform Sadao that the general needed him. Looking at Hana in utter distress, Sadao decided to get rid of the man. Sadao told the whole episode to the general. The general knew that Sadao was indispensable to him. He never trusted other Japanese surgeons. The general promised Sadao that nothing would happen to him. The general then planned to get the American soldier assassinated. He told Sadao that his private assassins were very competent and would also remove the dead body. Sadao thought that this plan would be the best for his family. After that meeting, Sadao spent 3 restless nights waiting for the assassins, but they did not come. Finally, the torture became too much to bear for him, and he planned to get rid of the enemy himself. Sadao told the escape plan to Tom. He also warned him that he needed to escape as the news of his presence was not hidden anymore. He arranged a boat, food, drinking water, and clothing for the young man and gave him his own flashlight. He told Tom that he would flash the light 2 times if he needed something, once if everything was fine. He must do this only when the sun dropped under the horizon. He further added that Tom could find many fish to eat, but he should eat them raw, lest the fire be seen. Even Hana didn't know about this plan. Sadao had told Tom to wait for a Korean ship. Sadao went to the general and informed him that the American had escaped. The general informed Sadao that he forgot about the prisoner as he was unwell. He told Sadao not to leak out this information to anybody. Back at home, Sadao remembered his days in America and the Americans he met there. He wondered why he could not kill Tom, his enemy. Dr. Sadao was indeed a patriotic Japanese as well as a dedicated surgeon. An American runaway prisoner in a badly wounded condition is washed ashore on Japanese Dr. Sadao's doorstep. The doctor is initially a little hesitant to save the prisoner's life when they discover that the latter's real identity was American. But being a dedicated surgeon, he decided to treat the enemy soldier. He is able to give the prisoner's life, but being a patriotic Japanese, he informs a senior Japanese army general about the prisoner's presence in his house and even agrees to have him killed by the general's assassins. He waits for the assassins to carry out their job, but when they do not arrive, he gives the prisoner his boat and helps him to escape safely, thus honoring both the values that he was a patriotic Japanese as well as a dedicated surgeon. The story is narrated in a simple manner using the third-person narration. It unfolds with a proper introduction and background to the characters, which makes the incidents even more revealing. Other important aspects of the narration include memories of the doctor's time spent in America, his relationship with his professor and landlady. These memories and his thoughts related to them reveal a lot about his character and personality. The setting of the story is also important as it happens in a war-driven Japan with tales of cruelty everywhere. Also, symbolism and colloquial reference have been made use of to highlight the difference in culture, like the kimono and gardener's use of animal blood to fertilize his plants. But they are contrasted by the human sentiments of compassion that are independent of the social prejudices. Enemy discusses the concept of righteousness, overlapping the concept of sin among mankind. Rationality and human empathy should rein our senses when dark instincts of fear and cruelty out of social bias threatens to dominate. Japan and America were bitter enemies, and the people of these two nations had been convinced to hate each other. This story is based in Japan, and through the conversations between the characters we can understand the political impositions they went through and how treating any American as the enemy was the most important display of true patriotism. The hatred was almost blind and prejudiced, but that was the norm of the society. It was this prejudice in the aftermath of the war that made the job of saving the life of an American prisoner so tough and dangerous for Dr. Sadao Hoki. However, in the end, all thoughts of enmity and reason give way to human kindness and to the impulses of a good doctor who knew nothing about the sacred oath of saving lives whenever he could.